I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for September 9th, 2025. First item on our agenda this evening is roll call.
Lancy? Here. Beck?
Here.
Malay? Malone?
Here.
Solfa? Here. Wolf?
Here.
Lehman?
Here.
Barron?
Here.
Lohman?
Here.
Pieper? Fehrenbach?
Here.
Anderson?
Here.
Vogelsinger? Barraza?
Here.
Quorum for business tonight.
We should probably show Alderperson Vogelsinger as the vacant position.
Vacancy.
And Alderman Malay is here.
Okay. And the second item on our agenda this evening is a reminder to please speak into the microphone. If you come up, you can adjust it at the podium. Item 3 is approval of the minutes for August 26, 2025. Does anybody have any corrections, any comments? Not, can I get a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Solfa, second by Malone. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay, that passes. MP. Well, doesn't, thank you. Up next would be matters from the public for items not on our agenda this evening. Let's see. We have to go back to item 4 for items to be removed, added, or changed. We need to add one thing to the executive session for sale or purchase of electric.
So moved.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll add that to the executive session. Okay. And then we'll go on to item 6, which is the consent agenda. Alderman Barron.
The consent agenda reads as follows. Resolution 2025-111-R, grant of subdivision variation for a porch addition, 744 Thorson Lane, James and Nancy Gongware, applicant. Your Honor, I move we approve the consent agenda as read.
Barron, second by Solfa. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Move right on to the regular agenda, which is item 7.1, which would be ordinance 2025-045, amending the official zoning map to amend a plan development granted by ordinance 0315 for the property at 873 to 875 North Randall Road. Monroe Property Group applicant. Alderman Beck.
Sure. So this ordinance will change the zoning map and a plan development for the property at 873 to 875 North Randall Road. It's an outlet lot in the Walmart parking lot on the corner of Fabian and Randall Road. It's been vacant for 10 years now. It's a strange, skinny, long property. It's about 1,500 square feet. And so the owners had a hard time filling it with a tenant. They have a bank interested in moving in there, but we have to make some changes in order to make that allowable by our current ordinance. So the first one is that we have a requirement in our general commercial district that we can't have more than 25% non-sales tax generating usage in our general per building in our general commercial district. So we need to increase that to 30% to allow this. We also have a restriction that banks and other financial service institutions are not allowed in this zoning area as well. The Plan Commission met on August 20th to discuss it. They unanimously agreed that this is a fine use of this space and also fine with going to a max of 30% of non-sales tax generating for that building. And it's only going to change things for that one specific property, right? This doesn't change things across.
Yes, so so the plan development for this area covers basically from Walmart and all the bank buildings and the other multi-tenant buildings in front of Walmart or east of Walmart. But the amendment would only be for this particular building and lot.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Anyone from the public care to make any comments too?
I should say the applicant's attorney is here if, in case the council has any questions.
Questions?
If not, I'll make the motion that we approve ordinance 2025-45, amending the official zoning map to amend a plan development granted by ordinance 3-15 for property at 873 to 875 North Randall Road, Monroe Property Group applicant.
Second.
Motion by Beck, second by Lancy. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. That can go on consent.
Yes, we'll do it.
Pretty simple. We'll move to item 7.2, which is ordinance 2025-046, zoning map amendment for 915, 917 Main Street.
So this is a few changes that we need to make in order to allow for new development on Main Street. First, the ordinance 46 would change the official zoning map, taking the properties in question from an R0 single-family residential to R1L single-family low-density residential. And then the following resolution, 112, is the final plat of this subdivision, where the owner wants to take the 5 parcels that they own and create a new developable lot in between the 2 existing homes at 915 and 919 Main Street, and put a new home in between them. The developer would be required to get all 3 properties up to city standards and also connect them to utilities because they're currently on septic and serviced by ComEd. They'd be paying a fee in lieu of the curb and gutter there that'll go towards whenever that section of street is rebuilt. There will also be payments made per our tree preservation ordinance for the trees that'll be removed there, and they'll get planted elsewhere. Did I miss anything, Zach?
No, that sums it up. Just to reinforce that Lot 1 and Lot 3 currently have existing homes that exist on the properties. Those will be renovated and restored and brought onto city utilities, where Lot 2 will be a new home constructed. One thing also to note is that we worked with the applicant to shift driveway locations, moving the current driveway from Lot 3 away from the intersection near Whipple. It's going to go to the western side, and then Lot 2 and Lot 1 will share a driveway access point, reducing the curb cuts on Main Street there in alignment with what the city engineer recommended. And the applicant's engineer is here also if you have questions.
They are planning on just keeping those houses there?
Yes, so they intend to keep the existing homes that are out there, fully renovate them, and they have permits in for renovation, but they have been on hold waiting for these zoning approvals, because if they were not granted the subdivision and the rezoning, they may explore other alternatives.
And, excuse me, on our little map there, lots 4 and 5, kind of up at the top, those are going to be incorporated into lots 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, so in my memo, I reference 5 parcels. There was 2 parcels in the rear of the property as it was currently configured, and then I believe 3 up here. What they are doing in this with the final plat of subdivision is consolidating all 5 parcels to create 3 zoning compliant development lots. So they are complying with all of our zoning minimum lot width, area, and they've run exercises for the buildings that currently exist to comply with zoning setbacks.
Right, and so if we're looking at the current zoning map, we have 2, I see now that kind of where that little bump out on lot 3 is currently a single one that goes all the way to the edge of lot 2, is that correct?
I believe so. I can see if I can pull
Just wanted to understand, okay.
Show reference in. It's tough with the current configuration, but essentially there's 1 lot here, 2nd lot there with the current existing, and I believe there's 2 rear parcels that exist. Overall, the property was annexed in 2 different actions. That's why there's a rezoning of only 3 of the parcels. All of the property will then be located in the R1L single family, which is consistent with the residential to the south.
Thank you.
Zach, just a general question. Now that we're looking at this, infill redevelopments happening here for real,
I know what I see about my house over on Maple Street. Just growing up my childhood, we saw this in other Chicago suburbs that suddenly kind of went over the threshold of a certain home level. Suddenly you had a lot of older homes being replaced or, heavily rehabbed into something else. Do we have any thoughts, or it's kind of a side issue, and I apologize, but maybe you may not be the right person to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyways, regarding how we handle, like, who's going to own these newer homes, like as far as like whether it be corporations or individuals, or more importantly, do we have any governance around rental properties, residential rental properties, just stuff like that?
So the city does not have any regulations that prohibit, landlords or rental properties from, people from buying investment properties and holding those. Where we do have regulations regarding rental programs are if it's a rental with 6 or more units. I believe there's been discussion about expanding the rental housing program where landlords would have to license, but I do not believe there's been discussion on limiting quantities of renter versus, homeowner occupied, properties.
Okay, so there's no registry or anything, it's just...
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And then I would just ask that the committee of the whole take action on each item individually, just for the record.
I'll move we approve ordinance 2025-46, zoning map amendment for 915 to 916 Main Street.
Motion by Beck, second by Solfa. Roll call, please.
Beck?
Aye.
Malay? Aye. Malone?
Aye.
Solfa? Aye. Wolf?
Aye.
Lehman? Aye. Barron?
Aye.
Lohman?
Aye.
Pieper?
Aye.
Fehrenbach?
Aye.
Anderson? Aye. Baraza?
And then the second one?
Nancy.
Oh,
And I move we approve resolution 2025-112-R, preliminary and final plat of subdivision for 915 to 927 Main Street.
second.
Motion by Beck, second by Anderson.
Anderson, yeah.
All in favor? Or, I'm sorry, do you want to do roll call?
Go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 7.3, which is a discussion on the public EV charging rates.
Good evening, everyone. Back in 2018, we installed the level 2 charger that's out in the city parking lot, or in the city hall parking lot right here. And there was some discussion at that time to create an ordinance to both modify the city code and to set the rate. So the ordinance says that the rate needs to be adjusted by city council. So I'm before you tonight. I don't have any documentation for you. It's more of a discussion. So that rate was set at 40 cents per kilowatt hour for charging, which by today's standards with the availability of level 3 charging is much too high. So I'm here to throw out a couple of numbers for you for discussion, and I would like to reduce that charging rate to about 25 cents. That's my offer to start the discussion. And then as far as the level 3 charging goes, based on market research and what our consultant who has been installing the chargers, they're recommending a 50 cent per kilowatt hour charge to start there. And then we don't have any type of how shall we say, loitering fees, if you finish parking your car, you finish charging your car, but you just leave your car and you don't move it. There's other additional fees that we can charge there. So specifically for the high school location, we want to make sure that someone's not parking there for an extended period of time. And so there's dollars per minute that can be assigned there, and that's pretty standard across a lot of level 3 chargers. So there's a grace period for when you complete charging your vehicle. We're recommending 10 minutes. You get the alert on the app, go get your car, move your car. And then we're also recommending a $1 per minute charge after that 10 minutes. And so that's pretty standard across level 3 charging. So once we discuss this, I would also like your permission to just bring this back in full ordinance form at City Council next Monday, and then we can get that approved.
Just a couple of quick questions. In terms of length of time that it usually takes to charge on both levels, what would that be? I mean, what would be the typical charge for a customer?
Right, so typical charging, say you have a 80 kilowatt battery in your car, for just round number purposes. We're going to charge that to about 80%, so 60 kilowatts. With these 120 kilowatt chargers, you're going to be there for about 30 minutes. So 30 minutes you're there and then obviously the charging rate will slow down as you get further charged up in your batteries, the charging rate will slow down. So if somebody does want to charge their car to 100%, that's fine. They can do that. But once the vehicle's completely topped off, that's when they get notified that it's done, so.
Just in follow-up, you said that these rates you're proposing, I mean, if somebody's going to, I don't know, North Aurora or Geneva and they plug in, it's going to be about the same?
That's correct.
All right, I'm all cool with that. The only thing is like the 15 minutes where we start charging $1 when we don't charge for parking in Batavia anywhere, seems a bit aggressive. What if you're eating dinner, or what if you are dropping your kid off somewhere, you know? I mean, especially like the high school parking lot isn't exactly near anything other than the high school. You know, I think we got to extend that up some.
Okay.
Because number one, I don't see a big line that's going to be forming for these things because there's multiple. Number two, we don't charge for parking anywhere else, so I think that this is just kind of a little bit too aggressive. Maybe give them more of a grace time, 45 minutes, an hour. I mean, what's an hour? Who cares? 15 minutes seems like
A lot if you're waiting.
you know, seems like a long time. I mean, just a little bit amount of time to get back. To start being charged.
Yeah, and to be sure, it's
And then
not,
we could also set up a speed trap there for the people coming back.
now we're talking. Now we're talking. I don't know if Chief Flowers has anything
Back
to
to
say
their
to
car.
that. Yeah, and just to be clear, it's not intended to charge anybody to park. You know, that's what we want to avoid, is we just don't want, hey, just because I have an electric vehicle, I can park here, you know, and I don't care what it costs. I mean, that could be pretty expensive if you park for a whole football
I agree with
game.
that, too.
But I do appreciate your point. Abby?
First, just thank you. I've been hoping for this. Charger is
There you are.
discussing the rates, especially after, I knew it was high because I heard about it a lot from people that
I
had
hear about it
electric
from
cars.
the back end of the website, yes.
It is, oh my gosh. So, and then I got an electric car and I, just scrolling through the available chargers, it was always at least twice as much as all the neighboring communities. So thank you so much for bringing this back to conversation. I'm fine with increasing the grace period. I don't want it to be a full hour, but somewhere between 10 minutes and maybe 20 to 30. 20 minutes grace period would be great, especially for the fast chargers where they're located. There's one downtown too, right? There's one on Shumway.
Well, yeah, that's another,
Okay.
it's hard to build it at Shumway, but it will be downtown
Downtown,
someplace.
okay.
We're looking for another location right now.
Those fast ones, a lot of times you end up just sitting in it and they're so fast that you don't leave your car. So you charge, you get to where you need to go and then you're out. With them being downtown, and what's great is that they are downtown. You usually find these in Walmart parking lots or in car dealerships in the middle of rural communities. So there's nothing to do and it's so annoying. So having it be a draw like, oh, and I can go get a cup of coffee or I can get something while I'm charging is just fantastic. So I would say, 30 minutes max on the grace period. Otherwise, I'm excited to be in line with the rest of the neighboring communities in price.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that the only thing that the grace period or the app is supposed to do is to be able to tell you to move on so somebody else can use it. And that's the reality. It's not like we're looking for money to have a parking space there. It's to keep the thing charging cars. When one's done, move it, get another one in there. Anybody else? Dustin?
I was going to say, would it also be worth, would you be able to report back on observed behaviors through the app? Like how much of that grace period are people using? And if it becomes a problem, then we can maybe revisit the charge later on. Because right now we're assuming it's going to be an upfront problem. But if demand's low enough, that's not a problem, then we can adjust based on that, I think, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We can adjust at any time.
The only thing I would add is that if it's going to be by the high school, it should be at least half an hour for kids between classes. My daughter did have her first friend show up at the house with an electric car, so it's out there.
Okay.
And can we pull data like how often this one's used out here?
Yes.
So we can, at some point, maybe every 6 months or something, get an idea how much these are used.
Certainly.
So that we can make a decision if we do want to put them elsewhere, whether or not we want to do that. Kevin?
Yeah, and I'd love to see the difference between our 40 cent and if we're going to bump this one down because it's not a level 3, right? I'd love to see if that increases usage. I had friends come in from out of town, decide not to come down here because it's 40 cents. For sure. So it'd be kind of cool to see if it does actually increase usage or what the case may be.
Steve?
Yes.
I have the data from the charger out front for August. It looks like it was used almost every day for at least one charge. And it brought in $202 at the current rate for a total of 519 kilowatt hours.
I don't use it or doing something down here.
I was going to say, and thank you, Andrea. I didn't want to bother doing that while I'm up here. So thank you for doing that. But yeah, I don't think these are an economic boon, unfortunately. So I just think they're a great thing for our community to have. So I'm happy if that number goes down, if more people use it. So.
And because everything is app-based for all these, depends on what car you have, you can already have it programmed in there, and then you just punch a button and it tells you what's closest and what the prices are. So I think it's something, if we need to be down at 25 cents, that's what we do. And I think half an hour to me is reasonable for that, for the grace period to get them out of there. So, if we find out that all of a sudden we're getting all kinds of, web replies that, gee, I had to sit there and wait for somebody to move their car because I needed a charge before I could leave, that's something we'll have to look at. Okay. Got direction from us?
I'm sorry. What was your question? Your question to me was?
Yes. Do you have your direction from us?
Yes, I believe so, but I just wanted to read everything back since I believe in three-part communication. So 25 cents on the level 2 charger here in the City Hall lot. 50 cents on the level 3 chargers in both locations. We're going to do a 30-minute grace period, and we're going to do $1 per minute after that.
Steve, I'm going to ask one question because I am a parent of a high school student that was in sports or participated, and some of those events take a little while, and some of the parking lot situations are not easy once you get into a spot. So I'm just kind of curious if we're going to really stick to holding them for a 30-minute grace period on a Friday night during a football game or during a basketball tournament or whatever it might be, or during the school day when kids are in class. They're not going to be able to go outside and back in. So I'm just kind of, thinking out loud a little bit that these are.
I am not answering this question, so council, go right ahead.
Somebody's owned EVs for years. You just get used to the routine and the behavior. EVs they're just a very different system. They're not like gas cars, right? So what happens is you end up pre-planning and like you're aware of the situations your car is going to be in and stuff like that. So I think it'll resolve itself. It's a little hard to get used to, but after about 3 months of owning one, it's all good.
It is a valid point for sure, but I appreciate the insight. You're right. It's a mindset change, I think.
Oh, and it's a learning curve,
For sure.
There are some cars you can just go in and plug in where you're going to, and it'll tell you where the charging spots are, where you have to stop if you want to maintain 20% battery before you have to charge. So in case in the event you get stuck in an accident scene or something, you can't go anywhere. If you're running the air conditioning, it eats the battery up.
So with these concerns, I've voiced it right at the very beginning. Maybe after 3 months, just come back and tell us, especially the high school lot, since that seems to be the one I brought up too, So tell us, how many times are people getting charged, and are they getting charged like $30 because they were there for they're there for a full hour? I mean, that would seem to be a bit punitive.
Okay. Yep, we can certainly do that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I have direction. Thank you all.
Okay. Our first presentation on the 2026 budget.
Oh, Betsy.
I can't believe that. 23rd budget.
I definitely appreciate the opportunity. Give this presentation to you. Ordinarily, we don't start having our committee of the whole budget discussions until after the draft budget gets publicly published in late October, and then at the two COW meetings in November, we have our budget discussions about that budget. But because of the situation that we were in last year, where we had the $3 million structural deficit in our budget, and having to put on hold 7 positions that were recommended at that time. And because we have new members of our city council, I thought maybe we do something different this year in terms of just starting at the very beginning and doing a little bit of a talk about how a municipal budget may be different than some other budgets that people are familiar with. And also, I think that this starting the conversation now helps be more transparent with our community so that they understand what goes into building a municipal budget and the environment in which we find ourselves this year. And then we're going to end up today talking about some philosophical questions with regard to the budget that we hope to maybe be able to have further discussion about in our upcoming city council and staff retreat on September 20th. So the theme of this presentation is what got us here won't get us there. And that will, the idea will become apparent as we get deeper into the presentation. So these are the things that we want to cover. Basically, what is a municipal budget? What are the different fund types? Some recent fiscal history and challenges that we're experiencing, as well as operational challenges. And then take a look at what options are presented to us and tax comparisons between us and other communities. So as far as what a municipal budget is, it quite simply is a plan. It isn't a commitment to spend amounts on certain things. It is a plan. It is a statement of priorities. Priorities that have been determined by the city council, both in the strategic plan, also the bike ped plan. We have a downtown plan. And we have a comprehensive plan. And all of those plans outline priorities that this city council has deemed important for us to accomplish in order to fulfill the vision that you have for our community. And it shows the community what you deeply care about. It's also a financial management document. So it determines how we're going to raise funds in order to pay for the things that we've made a priority, and then also how we're going to spend those funds. And there are legal requirements that are associated with a municipal budget. A municipal budget is required to be balanced. We can't operate at a deficit. So basically, it's a plan. And here's our budget process. It starts with planning, identifying goals, priorities, and then also financial forecasts. So part of the planning that we do is departments creating multi-year capital improvement project plans. And again, I mentioned the other strategic plan, bike ped plan, but also the financial forecast. So we look at things like, what is the trend with regard to the cost of construction and the cost of materials that we use to provide the services that we do to the city? What is the cost of borrowing? What are the labor market trends that we see? How will price volatility affect our budgets? And then also the availability of grant programs or the unavailability of grant programs to assist us with our expenses. The second step is the development. So that's where the departments request their draft budget, and that includes not only requesting the expenditures that will be necessary to complete the projects that they have planned for 2026, but it also is developing projections of where the 2025 budget will end up, because that will have an effect on the reserves that are available for the capital projects for the following year. Then there is review and revision and council workshops and public hearings. And then a council adopts the budget. There's ordinarily, as I said, a draft published in October, and then there are 2 COW meetings in November at which the budget is discussed. One of those meetings will be a public hearing on the budget itself, and then also if there is a recommendation to increase the levy, there will be a separate public hearing regarding that. And then once the budget has been adopted, there's execution and monitoring. So on a monthly basis, financial reports are provided by the finance department, which track where we are at between our budget and our expenditures, and if we are on track or if some adjustment needs to be made. Next slide talks about council's role in budgeting. Again, you have all set the priority and the goals, and staff has prepared the budget with the actions that need to be taken in order for us to accomplish those priorities and goals in the timeframes that have been established. You also review and approve the budget and any budget amendments. Sometimes things come up which were unanticipated, such as, you know, we've got a huge pump failure in one of the deep well. And so that's something that suddenly popped up in the middle of the year and will surely require a budget amendment. You also monitor performance, not only in the current year, but in, you know, groups of years to determine, are we sufficiently accurate in our ability to estimate the revenues and the expenditures, but also are we accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish within the time periods that have been set out. And also you communicate with your constituents and hear from them, you know, are we with our budgets accomplishing the things that they would like to see happen in this community, and or, you know, the flip side of that, I'm sure there's pressure as home values rise and other taxing bodies increase their taxes on others, that there is pressure to keep that number as low as possible. And that's a delicate balance that all of you carry the weight of having to make those decisions. So we, on staff side of things, we hope to provide you with as much information as you need to make that delicate balance. So next thing I'd like to talk about is the different types of city funds. So there is the general fund, and the general fund is supported by fees and taxes, and its purpose is general governance of the city. So you've got police and fire, community and economic development, IT, basically day-to-day operations of the city. You also have enterprise or utility funds such as water, sewer, and electric. These are supported by the ratepayers. And then you've got special revenue funds like the motor fuel tax and Rebuild Illinois. Those are revenues that come from the state, and they are restricted on how they may be used. You have capital project funds. Capital projects are those which are major non-recurring costs from the general fund. You've got debt servicing funds. Those are to pay the principal and interest on general obligation debt, and that's done either through taxes or alternative revenue sources. And then, of course, we have our TIF funds so that we are accounting separately for the incremental tax revenue that is accumulated in a TIF fund, as well as tracking the expenses for what we utilize those for. So this slide shows the different types of funds. I mentioned what their purpose was and their sources of funding. The fourth column gives the fiscal year 24 end of year balance for each one of those. And the final column for each of the funds in which that's relevant represents the days of operation represented by the end of year balance, or also known as the reserve. Looking at that, you may say the electric utility, 17 million is a lot of money, it looks like, in the reserve. But realize that those reserves are what are used to apply to the capital improvement projects for the utilities. So you can't really look at those reserves without looking at it in conjunction with the multi-year capital improvement project plans that are there. I'm sure that there will be discussion regarding the general fund reserve level, currently at $22,356,117, representing 232 days of operation. And I'll get to a little bit more about that later in the presentation when we talk about our recent fiscal past and trends and what we see for the future. So now I'd like to transition to that and talk about some budgetary challenges that we face. Toyed with whether to put this slide in, but we have similar discussions every year about our tax rate here in the city of Batavia is relatively low. And again, we'll see a comparison of that with other communities. And it's a good thing in that it makes our town more affordable than others to live in. But the other aspect of that is that if there are things that the city wants to accomplish, and if those things that the city wants to accomplish require additional resources, when the focus is put on keeping the tax rate low, it puts you kind of in conflict, you know? You have to go into austerity mode in order to maintain a low tax rate, versus if you want to be in a mode of growth and investment, where does that priority for having the lowest or near the lowest tax rate fall? So here are the fiscal challenges that we currently face. We have expanding objectives with limited resources. Especially with the newer residents, I think that their service delivery expectations continue to grow. Our school system, I think, is a big draw to people coming to this community. And they have accepted the value proposition of what it costs to reside in the area of our school districts. I think it's a similar vein for what they expect from a services from the city perspective as well. So funding and staffing levels, though, have not increased proportionally to those expectations. We also have inflation is continuing to escalate our operational costs, especially construction. Just in the last 5 years, many of the projects that we do, the construction costs of those projects have almost doubled. And it's right now we're being told we can expect 8% increases per year in construction costs. Then there's high interest rates, which affect the cost of borrowed capital in order to complete those projects. Mentioned the rising service expectations from residents. I kind of want to focus on that third bullet point, which is technology, that our residents are expecting us to increase the technology that we use to do our jobs so that they can hop online and complete services that previously used to be manual. Yeah, here's a good example. I'll give a shout out to Steve Allen, who this week is organizing training for the Tantalus software that we're using. Tantalus is a software that is for our electric and water meters and allows us to do drive-by readings where we used to have to physically go and read each meter on the house. But the advantages of this software just so outpaced that. In the recent microburst situation that we had, the Tantalus system, Steve could go and see exactly which homes were without power and which homes were with power. It was offered us a tremendous tool to use to get people back online faster. And that software is just one example, but that software is very expensive too. So those are just some of the things that we're running into on the technology side. And then escalating fixed costs such as salaries and pension obligations and healthcare benefits. Our pension obligations this year alone will increase by $380,000. And our healthcare benefits, while we have had a tremendous experience with IPVC and have had very little increases, everyone right now is experiencing healthcare cost increases, and this year we will be having a 6% increase in our healthcare benefits costs. And then debt servicing costs continue to increase. And then finally, part of our fiscal challenge is the reductions in external support. The passage of new legislation has unfunded mandates that we are expected to pay for. And then as well, decreased funding from state and federal government. It really is competitive in the grant funding arena. We're really grateful for the resource of ACS, which has just done a tremendous job in helping us to make sure that we can grasp the opportunities when they present themselves. And then I wanted to give kind of an example from a few different areas of what our fiscal challenges have been in the past. We really have not been fully funding our road program. If we were, we would need to resurface about 100,000 square yards of road every year in order for every road to be repaved every 20 years. By repaving every road each 20 years, you save yourself from having to reconstruct the road. A road reconstruction costs 3 to 5 times more than repaving the road. In that second bullet point, it shows that we only hit our fully funded repaving in just a few years, and from 2010 to 2019, we didn't hit the necessary road resurfacing levels at all. So we have fallen quite a way behind. And so we're going to see some more deterioration because we can't catch up in 1 year. Typically, we just focus on our busiest roads for resurfacing. And reconstruction really only happens when we have the good fortune of having a grant to pay for a majority of the reconstruction, such as was done on Main Street a few years back and Prairie and Wilson intersection last year. So ultimately, we are planning next year to do a pavement conditions study. And this will help us in future years to make a new plan and hopefully be able to stay on that plan, because deferred maintenance, while it saves in the immediate year, what happens is that maintenance that you could have paid for at X price this year will cost X plus 8% next year, and you will still have all of the same roads to maintain in that next year. And then facility needs is going to be a major discussion for us. We have had discussions regarding the facility needs study that was conducted for our police station. And then we also are working with FGM architects right now to look at all of our other facilities from a facility needs standpoint. While we did have a $1 million renovation of mostly the non-police side of City Hall last year, there are still the situation where we don't have enough office space over here. And so, and then Public Works is really probably one of the departments, along with the police department, that are most in need of, frankly, probably a new facility. The Public Works building was built in the early 1980s and is not ADA compliant. The lockers, it really lacks decent locker facilities, and several employees share offices. The fire stations are original to 2007, and while they have held up very well, they're at a point now, 20 years later, where they're experiencing significant maintenance cost. So again, all of this will be part of the facility needs report that FGM Architects is doing and that we expect at the end of this year. There are also personnel and capacity levels. We don't have the staffing level to meet the strategic goals, and the resource limitations, they really interfere with our ability to deliver on time those objectives that have been set forth in the strategic plan. But you've got a workforce who, they know the strategic plan, they're committed to the strategic plan. They know when we expect things to be done. Unfortunately, this is increased workloads amongst the existing workforce and has the danger of rising burnout. And while we're not experiencing a high level of turnover right now, there really is only a certain point, that you can push people before they have to make choices about, if they can continue to work at that level or not. And we really don't want to see that happen. Right now, I think we have a pretty high sense of morale around here. And when you experience turnover, you see a lot of knowledge walk out the door with existing employees, and it takes a long time to get a new employee up to speed with all of that. And it, the departure creates even more of a stress of lack of resources, and it's just disruptive. And there's high competitive market pressures right now. And so we want to be an employer of choice, which means not, overburdening employees. And then it has an impact on our city performance. Employees want to do the very best that they can for our community, for our residents, for our businesses, and they want the ability to make sure that mistakes aren't made, that they have enough time to do the very best job that they can. Historical headcounts, you might be surprised that since 2008, the city has only added 6 people in total in the general funds, where demands have grown substantially. The bottom of this graph shows the various departments, with the blue line representing 2008 and the orange representing 2025. Most notably there, the police department. We are 2 fewer sworn police officers today than we were back in 2008. So operational impact across the organization is it's slowed progress on projects. It's reduced our capacity to respond to residents. We used to miss a lot of opportunities for grants, but now we have ACS, it helps with that. But we'd like to do more partnerships with other organizations and seek external funding sources. Talked about effects on morale and burnout and break. It also affects the collaboration between departments when individually in your own department you feel so overwhelmed with what you're working on. And higher risk of errors, and the impacts are really citywide. Now I'd like to look at the broader economic picture. Federally, we're looking at a period of expecting a soft landing, low growth, steady inflation, high but stabilizing interest rates, and cautious consumer activity. Slower GDP and consumer growth means that tax revenue growth is near historical averages, but it's really not pacing the expenses that people are seeing. Decline in, we've seen the pandemic era funding go away, which has led to increased pressure on our local budgets. We may see some shifts from federal and state where the local government will have to pick up the tab for things that have been cut, higher municipal borrowing rates, and then also from a climate change perspective, the amounts that we may have to spend reacting to more significant storms puts a pressure on us. So the August inflation report was that wholesale inflation rose by 0.6% in July. That's the biggest increase in 3.5 years. But the big story is in the unemployment rate, which has ticked up to 4.3%. It's the highest that it's been in 4 years. So it's kind of a shaky outlook, you know? It's not anything that's drastic and volatile, but we can see that these types of things we have to keep in mind because they affect every household and every business in our community. So we're kind of falling behind from our strategic goals because of these rising costs, limited staffing, and the shrinking resources are leaving critical services delayed, deferred, or undone. So here's a look at our general fund history. And what you'll see is that in several instances that we end up with a budgeted deficit, but an actual surplus. And so the story there really has to do with, it's a structural gap that we have, but it's created, I think, by a reduced amount of resources versus having put all the plans of things to be done into the budget, but we just don't have the horsepower in terms of the people and the tools to be able to accomplish those plans that we have set out to do. So we plan the intentions, the strategic budgeting is reflecting the priorities, but then we have the execution reality of limited internal capacity that constrains the delivery of those. And the resulting paradox that a planned deficit that reflects the ambition of this city council to accomplish the things necessary to reach our objectives and our plans. But when the budget year ends in a surplus, it reflects that we don't have the capacity in order to reach those plans. And it's a surplus, but it's not from saving. It's from deferral because those projects that didn't get done get pushed into the next year. So what are our options? So, you know, you could either look at trying to look at revenues from strengthen our capacity to deliver on strategic goals and resident priorities. If we increase the revenues to meet our objectives, we can accomplish these things. You know, support a competitive staffing to attract and retain qualified employees. It improves our responsiveness. We can invest in the capital projects, infrastructure, and innovation, reduce long-term costs by allowing proactive planning and maintenance. We enhance our ability to have the matching grant funds available because oftentimes grants want a shovel-ready project, so that means we will already have invested in the engineering to be ready to do the work. But then there is some amount of local cost share that we will need as well. And it builds public trust through visible improvements. They say, you know, we understand that this increase was made so that we could accomplish something. It's really incumbent upon us to make the connection and the value statement for our residents that if we are increasing the levy, this is what you will have to show for it. We commit to that and we follow through on it. And then on the other side, the other way to address this structural deficit is cuts, frankly. And we can decide if those are the things that we're willing to accept in order to use cuts to balance our budget versus looking at revenues. And just a word about, we talked at length about this, so I'm not going to belabor this point much tonight, but you know, reserves should be used for emergencies, not routine expenses. Another way to utilize reserves is as one-time money for something that the city decides that it would like to pursue. And by utilizing the reserves to cover operational expenses, it ultimately undercuts our financial stability because those expenses will recur year after year, whereas utilizing that reserve to cover it is only for the current year. So, you know, we use the analogy, it's like using your savings account to cover your mortgage or your car payment. So we were talking about you can either utilize revenues to accomplish, or you can make cuts in order to balance the budget. You know, cuts represent an austerity outlook. And, you know, what would that look like? Our highest percentage of expense here at the city is people. So about 75% of our budget are our expenses associated with people. And cutting things like the materials that the departments use on an operational basis really has very little effect. So we don't want to, we're hoping that what we have heard from City Council and what we see in the plans that you have committed to doesn't look like this. It looks more like the investment side of things. But what we have to do is look at what is the right balance here. I don't think it's something that we could accomplish all at once, but I think that we should look at a plan over time that gets us to the place where we want to be. This slide shows that, you know, you can do it in big chunks or you can do it in kind of little fees. I get the impression that the average resident seems less tolerant of the multiple little fees than they do looking at understanding, you know, I understand property tax means I am paying this much for my city services. Again, just looking at the approach and the difference between austerity budgeting and investment budgeting. The focus on austerity is cost containment versus investment, which is strategic growth. Your revenue strategy is no new taxes or fees versus investment that may include new revenue sources. The short-term effect of austerity is that you have to dial back on your service levels. And investment budgeting, you're able to not only enhance existing, but expand. Long-term risk of austerity budgeting is higher future costs due to deferral versus investment budgeting, which may have a higher near-term cost, but long-term, there's savings. and the messaging frame. So live within our means, or do we invest to meet the needs and avoid decline? This is the tax rate history for Batavia. So back in 2004, we were at 55 cents per $100 of EAV, and we're currently at 76 cents per $100 of EAV, with very small incremental increases over time. And here's where Batavia is at relative to other communities as a tax rate. So we are third from the bottom. Geneva and St. Charles are slightly lower than us, but all of those towns above us have slightly higher tax rates than we do. And just to think about comparisons between those communities, Geneva does not have home rule. I would point that out. Max came up with this slide. I'll give him credit for it. The city is a monthly bill. So our property taxes, the average Batavia homeowner currently pays about $68 a month in property taxes. And if you break it out amongst the various services there, you see you pay about $23 for police and $13 for fire, et cetera. And that's roughly equivalent to, if you have YouTube TV, you're paying $80 a month for YouTube TV. So for less than you pay for YouTube TV, you're getting a fire department, police department, public works, streets and walks, and at the service level that people have come to expect here in the city of Batavia. This last slide is just some guiding questions. Not gonna, go into depth of discussions about what path that we should take this evening. I think it'd be probably better to do it in discussion at our retreat and then in our budget discussions. But the questions are, what outcomes do you think it's most important to protect or improve for our residents? Safety, infrastructure, responsiveness, beautification, growth. And then what level of service are we committed to maintaining? And where are we willing to scale back, if anywhere? Are we willing to raise new revenues to protect and expand services? And if so, what types of new revenues are most acceptable to our community? And how do we want to approach the deferred infrastructure and staffing needs? Do we want to aggressively catch up or phase it in over time? Or another choice is to continue deferring. And then what is our tolerance for utilizing reserves and under what conditions should we do that? And is staff to prepare a budget that reflects an austerity approach or an investment approach? And then with that, I will answer any questions.
Can you put this into an email and send that to us?
Absolutely.
So we can all have it to kind of refer to, because I think it's important, especially as we go into budget season and into a retreat, that we have all of the things that we would like to discuss either explained or, in front of us so that we have that ready to go into that.
Absolutely, and let me know if you guys need information in addition to this or background to it.
Anybody else have questions or comments?
In our discussions, it may be helpful for council and for some more, I'm sorry, thank you, Tim. To have some more maybe examples of what some of this would look like. So when we say we're not going to be able to do beautification projects, like which ones?
Yeah.
Because if we
Sure.
stay where we're at, or how many roads aren't going to get done? That kind of thing, I think, is a little bit more concrete and really illustrates what we're looking at for people.
You bet. Concrete examples.
And I think another important thing, especially when we get into the budget, is if you see what say a 5-cent increase to our tax rate would be, or what a 10-cent increase would be, just so you know that. And then, we have the ability as the council, if we so desire, we could say we want, a nickel per 100 that goes into a, maintenance fund. And we're going to use for capital improvements, or decide where that is. I mean, we've got money that's coming off of paying for the bonds for the fire stations what do we use that for? When we put that into an ordinance and it became law in Batavia, the additional sales tax money that we use to pay for that can go to another capital project or it can go to infrastructure. So, that way we don't have to just watch it disappear and then not have it and then have to go through the whole thing again of trying to add more sales tax, which is going to be really difficult to do. Abby?
Another piece of information that I think would be helpful in the discussions as we see those comparisons between us and other communities is to know, like for Geneva and St. Charles, for example, what the difference is in the home values that drive that they're covering a similar size budget or a bigger budget, but their home values are greater, so the percentage is less. But then also maybe a breakdown in how we compare in terms of what we can collect from our city. So does St. Charles have a larger industrial park, for example? Is that driving it? Is Geneva's retail center helping them keep their rates low? Because I would like to not only have discussions in terms of short term, how are we going to meet the need next year, but if we're just pumping more individual property taxes into a system that's creating a deficit already, then maybe there are some structural investments we change so that we are aligning ourselves with those more successful cities to say we need to have a better structure in place to attract sales tax revenue or industrial revenue, and long-term talk about what those strategies are.
Love to have a Costco.
Nope, I'd like to have a better downtown.
Right in line with that, I was thinking the same. That
Yes.
That is very valuable, the tax rate in the other towns, but the EAV in comparison with the population and their sales tax that they're getting.
Yes.
So the fuller profile of their revenue.
That sounds good. Yeah.
And then there's a little bit of a Debbie Downer, but based on current events. Some reserves for any sort of legal or needs coming up in the near future.
I don't know. We budget for legal fees every year, but that is a source.
Earlier than usual, but good information to have.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. And when you sit down, you can talk to us about project status.
Talk again right away.
I got some information on my computer that I wanted to.
Okay, there's a great program that Lori Boderman, our communications manager, wanted me to share with everybody. And it's a program at our library called No More Sticky Notes. It's a program for seniors who are looking to simplify their digital lives. And it's on Friday, September 12th at 1:30 p.m. at the Batavia Library. It will be led by Tony LaPalio. He's founder of Senior Tech Support. And this is a free program that covers password managers, two-factor authentication, and tips to avoid scams like phishing. And it's sponsored by the City of Batavia and the library. And the session will help participants build strong, secure passwords and gain confidence online. You do have to register for the program, but there's no fee. So if you go to bataviapubliclibrary.org or call 630-879-1393, we think it's going to be a really great program program for our seniors. Also, the green program is underway, and nearly all the audits that are part of that program have been scheduled. And Max is meeting with Kane County, and we are expecting that they're going to pass a resolution that will provide us with funding for the program in 2026. I mentioned that Electric is hosting the software vendor Tantalus for customer service seminar at our city hall. It's in this room all week. And the outer walls of the Peace Bridge ramp have been poured. One last Wednesday, September 3rd, and the other one was done today. So that project is really coming together. A new mid-block crossing is going to be added on Deer Path, right by the new medical clinic between Main Street and Wilson Street. And we are entering phase 3 of the lead service replacement program, and we'll continue to finish up the permanent patches and sod restoration throughout this fall from the second phase. And that is all I have, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Anybody have any questions? Jen?
I just have a question about the mid-block crossing from the Ignite Center. Where is that going to be? Like,
Just north of the intersection. So what it does is there's a sidewalk that Ignite built that leads to no sidewalk, but if you cross on that mid-block crossing, then there is sidewalk on the west side of Deer Path.
okay,
So it's
on Deer Path.
connecting the
Gotcha.
sidewalk that Ignite built with the sidewalk on the west side.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
And then I think they do have sidewalk that's all the way along the north side of Main Street to connect all the way to Jewel.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have any other business? No? I just wanted to mention, if anybody gets a chance, watch the new mural going up on the backside of the Comedy Vault. They're working on it this weekend, and it's turned out pretty good. They even got the artist to agree to a couple of changes in colors, so
Nice.
I think it'll turn out really nice. Okay, now I need a motion to go into executive session for the purchase of real estate and sale or purchase of electricity. So moved.
Second, keep it brief.
Okay. Clay and Solfa, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?